What's something you thought only happened in movies until it happened to you? Having an accident and the first person to arrive says, "I'm a doctor. Don't worry." Dating a nerdy awkward girl in high school that goes on to be a model later in life. When I went to America I found out the yellow school bus thing was real and not just a movie thing. Driving from El Paso to Georgia. Shortly after my journey began, I saw one of those signs that said, "Next gas station." Holy, that's a large number. Miles. You know how you see those raging house parties in movies that seem completely unfeasible in real life? Yeah. My neighbor throws one every year for Halloween, including hire bartenders, fire dancers, a full-blown DJ stage, and dab rigs spread throughout the house. I watched two blind people, strangers downtown, run into each other. It just seemed so random. One had a dog and one had a cane. I was trying to think of something to say, but hey, you both blind and about to run into each other seemed rude. So I just watched it in slow motion and felt like an asshole. You know that scene in the movie where the main character gets blasted with water from a passing car? It's raining. Everything sucks. Then just to drive it home they get doused. Well, everything sucked. It was raining. Walking a mile and a half back home in a torrential downpour with multiple bags of groceries. Having some deep thoughts or whatever, when, vroom splash, this miniature tidal wave just wrecks me, absolutely soaked. I stopped walking, watched the car drive away in disbelief, and started laughing. It actually made my night somewhat better because it was just so unexpected. I 100% thought that it was made up for movies. I was wrong. And very wet. Careful on those sidewalks, people. I woke up from a dream, jerking upright and shouting AHHHH. It was really weird, and I was glad no one else heard. High-speed crashes resulting in an epic ducking car flip. Coming home from a night out and entered from an on-ramp and went full speed into the center divide. SUV then did an epic kickflip before landing on its roof. Luckily everybody in the vehicle was okay. Me and my brother once saw a homeless guy. Classic homeless guy with fingerless gloves, an old army jacket, and a beard that hadn't seen a blade since Reagan probably kicked this dude out of his institution. And the kicker, he was carrying a long stick like a broom handle, with a handkerchief tied around the end and all of it stuffed into the handkerchief. Oh, and the handkerchief was red with white polka dots. So this guy was either a method actor researching his role as a hobo in a new Little Rascals reboot, some kind of performance artist, or a time-traveling homeless man from the 1920s who hasn't discovered shopping carts. Random acts of kindness among strangers. One time I was broke and on the verge of being homeless in Vegas, staying at a pay-by-the-week motel in a bad part of the city. I was due to be kicked out the next day and didn't have any way to pay the $200 for another week. I was talking to some people on a local chat and mentioned it and one guy offered to give me the money. I was sure he'd want something for it, you know. But I had nothing to lose so I met him at a fast food place nearby and the guy just handed me $300. Told me the extra 100 was so I could eat for the next week, too, and then just said to be safe and drove away. Never saw or heard from him again. This legit happened to me in April. My first thought was this is some dumb movie. It had been seeing this girl for a few weeks and we had a hotel by Big Sur. She went through my phone while I was sleeping and my most recent texts were 3 girls. If she had bothered to read them she would find I often use my personal cell phone for work. I work in IT, and I was helping them with problems. But nope. She slams the phone down and runs to her car as I say I can explain. But she just drives off to her parents who lived nearby and never answered her phone. I didn't really continue to try to get to hold of her because I really don't want to be with someone that reacts that way anyway. Landing the girl of your dreams. Had the biggest thing for a pretty, pale chick in my geometry class freshman year. Made some moves. That all flopped. She was quiet and all mysterious, which made me just crazier for her. Moved on, but never stopped digging her. Most beautiful girl ever. Then one day, over a year after I graduated I was depressed and alone. Figured I'd hit her up on Facebook because I had nothing left to lose. Got to know each other. Turns out she's just extremely shy and socially awkward. After some months of being friends, I asked her on a date that she tried to persuade me that I wouldn't like her. My 5-year obsession wasn't about to lose that debate. Now we're engaged. I love her so much. I knew this guy that was down on his luck in high school and had lost faith in hard work ever paying off. I told him I was determined to find him a 4-leaf clover. Searched every day in this big field of clovers by my house. Did this for weeks and then off and on for months. A year went by but I never truly gave up and would occasionally go out looking. I even prayed to God I'd find one because the guy really seemed to have faith in me, proving to him that working for something and believing in yourself pays off. Near the end of senior year, I had pretty much given up, but would still kneel down to look at clover patches on occasion. Then one day, my sister comes in and says if I saw our pond. We have a huge pond. It's more like a small lake. I said no, and she says there are tons of 4-leaf clovers. So I go running out and there are thousands of them everywhere. Nothing but 4-leaf clovers. I gave one to the guy and he was seriously moved. He got into the military and every now and then he sends me a pic of the clover. He always keeps it with him. Stepped on a rake. It wasn't an accident. I just wanted to see if it would actually happen. Quite painful for my 10-year-old forehead. One time a very large, rotund co-worker of mine slipped and started rolling head over heels down a really steep hill towards me. I felt like I was Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. My friend died when we were 20. I would be out in public and I would see her. Then I would get closer and realize it was just someone that looked like her. It happened pretty often. I guess I just missed her so my brain made me see her. I had always thought it was just a movie thing. Screaming out in anguish from emotional pain after finding out that my son was dead in my belly. I couldn't help it. I feel sorry for the people who heard me. I wailed and cried and said nonsensical it for about 5 minutes. Then I got my big girl panties on and went to the hospital that covered my insurance over an hour away, America. Feeling like you can't breathe when you're grieving a close loss. It sounds so cliche. They say it all the time in movies and on TV. And then you experience it and it's exactly the way they say. I'd lost people before, but always older. Kind of expected. Recently there was a sudden loss in our family of someone much younger and I'm still trying to process it. After the first few weeks it got easier, but sometimes out of nowhere I find myself feeling like there's suddenly no air. Being carried away by a crowd. We were doing active shoot-or-live drills and a bunch of otherwise perfectly calm and intelligent people mass stampeded the moment the first simulated shots rang out. They ran straight towards the gunshots. And I only survived because someone tripping and falling created a mass of tangled people on the ground that let me break free and run out a disabled fire exit. I expected more from my colleagues. The worst thing was, though, that if I hadn't heard the first gunshot so clearly I would have just been another part of that crowd. This is fantastic and I remember it fondly. I hated this guy in one of my classes. He was pretentious and always acted like he had something to prove. I used to draw caricatures of him in class while he yammered on and on. At the end of the semester, our professors had a party during which a few of us got tipsy. Come to find out that outside class this guy is actually fairly chill and quite witty and funny. I had made a big show of hating on him so it felt weird to end up at a bar chatting with him. We walked out and parted ways despite some obvious mutual attraction. I was almost to my car when I said "Ossiducket," turned, and ran full tilt into his arms. We kissed passionately on the street while bar patrons looked on. Even though we eventually broke up, it was my most Hollywood moment. Having a girl period on your leg while at a party. My water broke in a dramatic fashion when I went into labor with my first baby. Okay, this is kinda funny. I live in Colorado, and where I live we don't have straight roads. Like every road in my town turns. So as a kid I always thought that straight roads like on maps in the movies didn't actually exist. Minding my own business in a bank and boom, armed robbery. No, I didn't turn into Batman or anything else cool. I continued filling out paperwork. It wasn't a grand heist from Payday. It was a town drug user with a kitchen knife. One stepped on a banana peel on the sidewalk just to see what would happen. Leg flew out from under me exactly like in the movies. Next thing I know, I'm on my ass on the sidewalk telling my wife, holy it, those things are slippery. And you can imagine the look she was giving me. I saw a truck crashed in a pond. Watching it sink was like watching a movie. Slowly going down and then suddenly pulled under. There was a sucking sound and a bunch of bubbles gurgled up. And then nothing until a bunch of stuff that was in the truck floated up to the top. It was awesome. My wife and I went to Nick for the first time a couple of years ago during the summer. We were there in August during a heat wave. We were staying at an Airbnb in the Bronx. And as we were searching for it, we were driving through neighborhoods where the fire hydrants were spewing water throughout the streets. Children were playing in the water like it was no big deal. Literally filling water balloons with the pressure coming from it. I thought that was only a thing from Hey Arnold. But apparently it is a totally normal thing during heat waves in New York City. Buying groceries with a loaf of French bread sticking out of the paper bag. The sound bullets make when they spin really fast after hitting something. The classic shoe in older movies. And the screeching car tires in the US, of course. Gunshots. And they sound nothing like they do in the movies. I thought they were firecrackers until I saw people reacting to them by ducking and laying on the ground. Seeing that one special girl that is everything you could dream of in a woman and more. Far out of your league and you know it. Until one day she initiates talking and making moves on you while you think this can't be happening. I married that girl about a month ago. Stuck in standstill traffic. Took the first lane I could, which is not the one I need. I know trying to get over is going to be a pain. Until I see the person in the car next to me is my brother and he knew I would need over. He rolled his window down and told me to get in front and we gave each other updates on what we knew was going on. But that timing was amazing. That scene in Casablanca where Rick said of all the gin joints in the world quote happened to me. I was home from college and me and all the dudes from the family go to a bar for drinks. They kept pestering me about an ex that I recently broke up with. And wouldn't you know it, she was actually in that bar and all I could think of when my uncle sat her down next to me was that Humphrey Bogart quote. Really awkward. My grandpa heard me having sex. Loudly. For a very long time when my BF and I hooked up for the first time. I brought him back to my place, which was a guest house behind my grandparents' house. It was quite a night. The next morning I checked my voicemail. There were several messages from him. And they are, hey, you okay? Thought I heard something. Love you. Are you alright? Do I need to call the cops? Just call. I'm coming back there to check on you. Answer the door. And that was the last message. There was no knock. He didn't even get on my porch before he knew that I was praying to God. The next morning, BF and I listened to the messages in horror. We'd both been a little drunk, and it got amazingly out of hand. We never heard the phone. We never heard anything. BF and I left to go back to where we left his car the night before. Because safety. And my guy introduces himself to grandpa. Not blinking. I think he was a little proud of himself. And I think grandpa respected that we never talked about it. Yeah. Awkward 6 moment with your parents. Someone actually having a crush on me. Being in a fire and getting your face black with ashes. I always thought it was bad makeup. Car breaking down before the wedding. Oh. But the movies never have 2 cars break down before your wedding. Last night I literally had a dream within a dream. It's something I never really thought happened in real life. It started with me dreaming and thinking I had woken up. I was telling my BF about my dream for a bit, and after what felt like a half hour later, I actually woke up. What's crazy is my BF woke up at the same time and said he had a weird nightmare. Definitely spooked me a little. I've been a cop for about 3 years now in a mid-sized town. Responded to robbery a while back where a witness said I missed them by a second or 2. I go the direction the witness pointed me toward and I send another team the opposite direction just in case. Suspect came out the shadows in the alleyway and shot my buddy in the heart. His vest caught the bullet and he's okay. We caught the guy a few minutes later. Sometimes I feel like I'm living a bad buddy cop film, haha. Was eating dinner with my mom the other day in a small restaurant. It was a pretty quiet place, so generally people talk quietly to their table. Well, the guy at the table next to us was having an interesting conversation about dogs pooping and tracking it into the house and fun dinner topics like that. So the ladies at his table were desperately trying to get him to shut up, and he finally quieted down for a few minutes. Until he said, "Can I just say one more thing?" Without hesitation, the whole entire restaurant turned to him and yelled no. Just seemed like something you'd see in a sitcom or something. It was hilarious. I was driving home from work on a rainy night when I saw a white work van driving all crazy and very fast. I slowed down and let him pass me because I was worried he would swerve in my lane and hit me. 4-lane highway. I watch him drive erratically down the road, and it is pouring. All of a sudden he swerves, skids off the highway, then did a 360 in the air before landing in a ditch, on all 4 wheels on the side of the highway. It was like watching a bad movie scene. I've never seen a car flip in the air before or since, especially because of the dark and rainy aspect. I pulled over, called 911, and gave a statement once the police arrived. The worst part about it was that he had 2 teens in the back of the van who weren't strapped in, but they survived. Love at first sight. 4 years later and I'm proposing in a few weeks. Breathing air. Man, that first hour out of the womb was something else. When myself and 3 friends all approached each other at a 4-way intersection in a completely unplanned yet perfectly timed meeting. High velocity blood loss. I got sliced with broken glass when I fell with a bottle in my hand. The bottle smashed in my hand and stabbed pretty deep. When I got up and opened my fist, blood squirted from my hand in sync with my pulse. It was quite the oh it moment. Baguettes in France. I saw an old man on the side of the road wearing a high-vis vest, a walking stick, hunched over carrying a bag of baguettes. It's legitimately surprising that everything in France is baguettes. Hot dogs were baguettes. All bread was baguettes. I saw a kid beating his sister with a baguette. Best part is I don't blame them. Baguettes straight out of the boulangerie are magnificent. I was approached by 3 dudes I've never met in my life when I was 12 who then proceeded to bully me. One who looked like a dang near carbon copy of Dudley Dursley, movie version, and 2 skinny minions. I was 70 pounds soaking wet and a tiny girl child, so Dursley smacked the frog I'd just caught out of my hands and squeezed it in front of me until its eyes began to swell. The other 2 jeering in the background. Sucks for him though. I spent most of my childhood stomping through creeks, lifting up fallen tree logs bigger than me like it's woodland CrossFit. I could pick up sewer covers by that age barehanded. I punched him in the nose so hard I heard the crack. Dursley and his cronies went all jaw dropped before the D-head threw the frog at my face for retaliation. It hit, but I caught it as it bounced off and booked. Never saw those ids again. TLDR. Found myself amidst a YA novel with classic YA novel bullies.